Hello everybody and welcome to the Mirth Connect webcast. My name is Jacob Brower and I am the Mirth Connect project lead. First of all, I wanted to give a little introduction about what I'm going to be talking about today. First, I'm going to give a Mirth Connect overview where I'll go through all the different pieces of Mirth Connect, what it is, answer some questions about it. Next, I'm going to give a demonstration showing the installation and configuration of Mirth Connect. This will cover everything from installing Mirth Connect on a new system, running it, configuring a channel, and testing it out. Third, I will give an overview of the Mirth Connect administrator. This includes all the different pieces of the Mirth Connect administrator and what you can do with them. And finally, I have a bunch of channel demonstrations that I'm going to give, and some of the technologies that I am going to show in those channel demonstrations are listed below. So the first question I need to cover is, what is Mirth Connect? So Mirth Connect is a healthcare integration engine, and it's open source and standards based. I'm going to cover a little bit more in the next slide or slides what exactly that means. The other question we get is, who develops Mirth Connect? So since Mirth Connect is open source, a lot of people can contribute to it, but it is an open source project that is sponsored by Mirth Corporation. It's maintained and developed primarily by Mirth Corporation as well. So I'm the project lead on it, and I'm one of the developers, and I work for Mirth Corporation. We also have a large community of users, and the users contribute bug reports, feature requests, even source code patches, and free online support in the form of our forums and our wikis. A little bit more about Mirth Corporation, since I've mentioned it a couple times. Mirth Corporation has been around for quite a while now. We started in 1993 with software development. In 1999, we started focusing on healthcare. And in 2006, we started our line of Mirth products. And the first Mirth product that we launched was Mirth Connect, and that's what I'm going to be demonstrating today. So a little bit more about what Mirth Connect is and why we created it. We needed to use a system to communicate via HL7, and we looked out there and we didn't see much that we thought we could use, and we had to address a few different problems. Some of these problems many of you, I'm sure, are experiencing today. You need to communicate between different systems, maybe labs, pharmacies, and clinics, to legacy applications. Maybe you need to speak through web services, maybe you need to read or write to or from a database, and all these systems are using different protocols, different versions, maybe HL7 version 2, version 3, different point versions of HL7, and each of these systems usually has their own expensive proprietary solution. You have HIPAA rules you need to comply to. All the systems have incompatible data. They need many different connection requirements, like database or web service or communicate over LLP, TCP, and you don't really have much control or flexibility with these different systems. So we created a tool to stick in the middle of all these different systems so that we can do the routing, the filtering, the transformation, all using this tool. So you can communicate with your lab to your legacy applications, from your pharmacy to your web services, and so on. And this tool is open source based. It's very extensible, powerful, flexible, and reliable, and I'll touch on all of those in a little bit. So first I wanted to give a little bit more information on Mirth Connect. As I've already mentioned, it's a healthcare integration engine, and it's also an administration tool for configuring that integration engine. It's open source, which means all the source code is available to you. You can download it online, you can look at it, modify it if you like, build it yourself if you want to. It's an OSI approved license of MPL 1.1. Mirth Connect is also cross-platform. That means any operating system that can run Java can run Mirth Connect. So you can run Mirth Connect on your Mac, your OS X operating system, or you could run it on a Linux server if you want to, or your Windows system. You can also connect to it using the administrator using any operating system that can run Java. It's been shown in studies that Mirth Connect is feature comparable to all the top proprietary systems, and it's been around for quite a while now. Version 1.0 we first released in July of 2006, and we've released new versions steadily since then, with 2.2.1 coming in February of 2012. Mirth Connect is very easy to use and powerful, as I'm sure you're going to see in the demonstrations that I give shortly. It has many graphical administration tools that you can use, and it uses a simple channel-based interface architecture where you configure your channels on your server in order to do your routing, filtering, and transformation. So it's very flexible. You can configure multiple routes, as many filters or transformers as you want, and everything is extensible in Mirth Connect via Java and JavaScript. And we also have a plugin architecture where you could create your own extensions, connectors, mapper tools, and plug them into Mirth Connect. Mirth Connect, obviously because it's open source, it's also very cost effective. Since Mirth Connect is open source, we have no license fees at all, and instead we offer, as a company, Mirth Corporation, we offer commercial support, training, and consulting services. I wanted to talk a little bit about what open source is and what the benefits that you get are because Mirth Connect is open source. Being open source, Mirth Connect, we actually consider ourselves to be commercial open source. This means that we offer commercial quality product and commercial quality services, except we don't charge the license fees. Instead, we make our revenue on support, training, and consulting services that we offer. Mirth Connect, as I've already mentioned, is feature comparable to all of the commercial integration engines and usually fares better in head-to-head comparisons. Part of the reasons Mirth Connect usually fares better is because we have a really low barrier to entry, being open source with no license fees, and this allows for a high adoption rate. We have hundreds of thousands of downloads of Mirth Connect. We have an active global community with tens of thousands of users. These users are contributing to us through bug reports, through feature requests, voting on issues or features that they'd like to see in the next version of Mirth Connect, helping each other out, creating interfaces. And we also have thousands of production rollouts. I don't have an exact number for our production rollouts because, like I said, we are open source. I know how many production rollouts we support, but there are also many production rollouts out there that we actually don't support. So we estimate that there are currently thousands of production rollouts. With Mirth Connect, we follow the fast, agile development methodology. We generally release on a quarterly schedule. It can come sooner or later depending on the version, if it's a major or minor patch. We also offer fast patches for bugs with new versions or simply a patch if you just need a patch for it. And our feature list is community driven, so we take requests for what features people want to see, and those are the ones that we implement. Because we're open source, we believe that this allows us to create better software. There's a few different points here I want to touch on. First of all, reliability. You get better reliability with an open source product because you're not at the mercy of a vendor to fix a bug, release a fixed version. You can choose to patch it, you can wait for an official release, that's up to you. And able developers that are out there, so we have tens of thousands of people, users in our community, many of them are able developers themselves. Since Mirth Connect is open source, if they discover an issue or a bug, they will commonly report it and also report it along with a fix. Since the source code's available to them, they can look at it, see what the problem is, report a fix, and we can commit it and include it in the next release or create a patch for it. With open source, you also get better stability, and by stability I mean stability of the project. We adhere to open standards, not proprietary formats. We don't try and force you to upgrade to a newer version since we don't actually sell licenses. We're not going to do something that makes you be forced to upgrade in order to keep support of specific features or versions. And whether or not Mirth Corporation is around, the open source project is out there and it will always exist. Like I said, with a community of tens of thousands of users, you have a stable product that's not going anywhere no matter what happens to the companies that currently sponsor it. With open source, you also get better auditability. We publish the source code, and by publishing the source code, we back up our own claims of security, freedom from backdoors, adherence to standards. If you don't have the source code out there, you're only taking the vendor's word at face value. There's no auditability there. You can't look at the source code and check for a backdoor or audit the security of the product. Cost is an obvious one. There's no license fees. There are no renewal fees. Overall, lower cost of total ownership. This is because there's better reliability, better stability, no license fees, no renewal fees. All these help contribute to a better total cost of ownership of the product. And finally, support and accountability. We pride ourselves in offering better support than a standard because support is what drives our revenue. So we offer the best support possible, and the open source model encourages accountability for individual developers as well as Mirth Corporation as a whole. So I wanted to address a couple common questions about Mirth Connect. The first question is whether or not there's a difference between the free and open source version of Mirth Connect that you can download off the website and the supported version of Mirth Connect. So you can come to us for support, and a lot of people say, well, if I have support, it's a different version, it's an enterprise version, the open source version isn't good enough to use. This is not true. You download the exact same enterprise-ready integration engine that you get with support. If you come to support, we don't give you a different version, a different build, anything like that. It's the exact same version that you can download from the website. Signing up for support, you do sometimes gain access to additional plugins and connectors that aren't available in the open source release. So we have special plugins, a couple extra features, just extensions to the core product that you can get if you're on support. In addition to that, being on support gives you access to bug fixes without having to wait for the next release. So if we commit a bug fix, we could give you access to that, push it out to you if you're on support. If you're not on support, you can still get it, you can download it. If you want to build the system yourself, that's up to you. But in general, unless it's a major issue, that bug fix wouldn't be available until the next release unless you build it yourself. We also have a lot of people say, oh, Mirth Connect's open source. That means it's difficult to install and configure. This is definitely not true. There are many ways to install Mirth Connect, and I'll give you an example of installing Mirth Connect and setting up to process messages in just a couple of minutes. Many different ways to install Mirth Connect. You could use a GUI installer that guides you through the installation, step by step. If you want more hands-on approach, you could download a zip or a tar.gz distribution, extract it yourself. We've also heard from users that they can get Mirth Connect installed and processing message in a matter of minutes. So often people say, oh, you need some days to configure interfaces, read from HL7, pull out fields, write to a database. You can do that in minutes, even if you haven't used Mirth Connect before. Another really popular question is, where is the documentation for Mirth Connect? So we have a couple different resources that you can use for documentation. First of all, the free and also community-driven resources. These are the wiki, the forums, and the webcasts and webinars that we provide. The wiki, we contribute to it, and users also contribute to it. There's a lot of information on there, a wealth of information, sample channels, information about how to set up and configure Mirth Connect, different configuration options, and so on. How to build Mirth Connect from scratch is even on the wiki. There's also the forums. We have tens of thousands of users on both the wiki and the forums, and the forums are totally community driven as well. We also have employees on there answering questions and contributing to it. And you can go on in the forums and ask a question, and there's a large amount of activity on the forums, so you get answers right away. Finally, webcasts and webinars, webcasts like this that we produce, where we're going to give demonstrations on how to use Mirth Connect, how to install it, configure it, and so on. We also offer professional support. With professional support, you get access to online training, you get access to monthly developer Q&As, where we'll host a question and answer session where you can actually come on and ask me and other Mirth Connect developers questions about Mirth Connect. We'll give you previews to new features, answer questions about how to do something in a channel, and so on. And finally, there's also Mirth Connect training and certification, where you can actually become Mirth Connect certified. You can take a week-long class and get training on how to use Mirth Connect, how to develop channels, how to use Mirth Connect appliances, and Mirth Connect certified as well. In this training, you also get programming guide, a manual, and a few other bits of information for you to keep and take home. We have a lot more common questions that I would like to cover if I had more time, but for now what you can do is you can go visit our Mirth Connect FAQ. The address there is below, and you can visit the Mirth Connect FAQ and read more of these questions, and hopefully we answer them for you. If you have any more questions, please just contact us, and if it's a popular question, we'll even add it to our FAQ. So now I wanted to get into an overview of Mirth Connect and what it supports. As I've already said, it's a healthcare integration engine, and I want to go over some of the message types, mostly related to healthcare, that this supports. Being a healthcare integration engine, certainly HL7 version 2 and version 3 are robustly supported in Mirth Connect. We also support DICOM for imaging. We support NCPDP transactions. We support X12 and EDI. And we support just flat file delimited text. And with all of these, we also support XML, because internally everything is processed in Mirth Connect as XML. So when you process HL7, it's actually transformed into XML and back. So XML is robustly supported in Mirth Connect. And using these data types, you can really pull through any type of data in Mirth Connect, even binary data, you can process through Mirth Connect. Some of the included connectors that Mirth Connect comes with are listed below. The MLP or LP connector, this is really TCP for HL7 if you're not too familiar with it. Of course, we support TCP as well. We support HTTP receiving and sending, HTTP responses. We support file system connections, network file shares, secured file shares, Samba, FTP, SFTP, receiving over web services. You can create your own web services and host them in Mirth Connect. You can send to web services in Mirth Connect, pull down the WSDL. Mirth Connect will know how to build up the objects, SOAP envelopes, and send to it. JMS, database connections, reading and writing, sending out emails, receiving emails, PDF and RTF or document writing, password protected as well, and JavaScript, where you can kind of create any sort of custom connector logic you want. Anywhere that you can use JavaScript in Mirth Connect, you can also use Java code. You can use libraries that you add to Mirth Connect, and so really you can create any sort of custom connection logic if you need to with this set of connectors. We also have a couple enterprise extensions where if you're on support, you can gain access to a few of these. One of them is the SSL manager, which allows you to add SSL key stores and certificates to different connectors. We also have role-based access control plugin, where you can create different roles in Mirth Connect for users, apply different permissions to these roles, assign these roles to different users, and then you could have one user that can say only see the 3 channels for Hospital A, another user could see the 5 channels for Hospital B. You could even have a user that can only view the channels but can't edit them or can't view messages. There's a lot of different flexibility in the role-based access control plugin. We also have a channel history plugin where it will preserve all of the changes that you make to a channel. So if you make a change to a channel, it'll save each revision that you do, and then you could actually go back, compare the differences between different revisions of a channel. It'll show you who made those changes, so you can point the finger, look, and say, oh hey, you messed up, you made this change, it broke something, and then you can just click it and say revert. I want to go back to this version of the channel. We also have an email reader plugin. This allows you to connect to an IMAP or POP3 email server and pull down emails. You can also pull down attachments and process those as messages if you like. We have connectors for connecting to the NHIN. We have a channel report tool that gives you reports on your channels. And this is just a subset of the enterprise extensions that we have available to you if you're on support. And we're always increasing this list. So that was covering the Mirth Connect server, and now I wanted to cover exactly what the Mirth Connect administrator is. So the Mirth Connect administrator is a fat client for connecting to the Mirth Connect server and configuring your channels and overall server configuration options for the Mirth Connect server that's running. Generally, what you're going to be doing is creating channels and deploying them, and channels you can think of as an interface that has a single source connector, filters, transforms, where you filter a message out, decide whether or not you want to process it, then you transform it, extract data, reformat the data, move it around, modify it, and then send out to one or many destination connectors, maybe write some information out to a database from the message, and then send the entire message on to over LLP to a different hospital. The Mirth Connect administrator is also used to manage channels, and so to start them, stop them, redeploy them, and monitor the message flow through these channels. I keep talking about channels, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what a channel actually consists of. So there's a bunch of different pieces to a channel. First of all, you have a single source connector in a channel. This could be receiving over LLP. It could be reading from a database. After you read a message in, you run as many filters and validation steps as you want. So you could validate HL7, you could filter it out if it's not from hospital A, you could filter it out. Maybe you only want to process ORU RO1 messages, and you get a different type of message and you just filter it out. You say I don't want to process this. Next, you run through as many transformers as you configure, and transformers could be converting from one data type to another. Maybe you read from a database and you're going to build up an HL7 message, or maybe the other way around, or maybe you're just changing the data around a little bit. Maybe you're fixing it up, fixing some problems that the message had in it. Maybe you're moving data from one field to another, adding data to it. That could all be run in transformer. And then finally, you send out the messages that you want to as many destination connectors as you want. So although you only have one source connector where you're receiving from one point, you have as many destination connectors as you want. A little bit more about what happens in these filters and validation steps. Once the message is received by the source connector, maybe you're receiving from a database or maybe you're receiving HL7, the message is always converted to XML. And when you're in the filter and transformer steps, you're dealing with that HL7 or with that XML. rather than directly with the HL7 structure. Once you leave the transformer steps, the conversion from XML back to the data type you specify actually takes place. So maybe you come in as HL7 version 2 and do a bunch of logic, and maybe you go out as HL7 version 2, maybe you change it to send out as HL7 version 3. So when you're in this filter and validation step, and also the transformers, all the message data is accessible using JavaScript and E4X, and this is because it's in XML. E4X is a query language, JavaScript query language for XML, and so in the filter and transformers, you're working with the transform version of the message. So there are a bunch of different ways that you can implement these channels, and I just want to show a couple different patterns that we commonly see implemented. First, the most simple to understand would be the integration pattern. The integration pattern, you have a single source, you would have a single filter, a single transformer, and a single destination. So you're just reading a message in over source, maybe it's coming in over HL7, you're deciding whether or not you want to process it in your filter, you run some transformation steps on it, and then you send it out to a single system. Let's say you wanted to broadcast that same message. You might use this other pattern where you create multiple destinations, so you still have a filter and transformer processing on the source message, but then each destination that you're sending to gets a copy of the exact same message. That's what we call the broadcast pattern. You could also use Mirth more as a router, where you come in with a message in the source. Each destination could have its own filter, its own transformer, and then send out a completely different version or copy of the message to that destination. So one destination might be a database where you're doing insert. Another destination might be sending out the version of HL7 that you got in, sending it out over LP, and finally maybe you're writing it to the file system for records. We also support channel chaining, so just to make this even more flexible, one of your destinations could actually be the source of another channel. So that's using what we call the channel writer, and then you can write directly into another channel which would have its own set of processing logic, its own filters, its own transformers, its own destinations. So you can see how using these different patterns you can really take channels and do a lot of different things with them, make them very flexible. A couple of the screenshots of Mirth Connect before we get into the actual demonstrations. I wanted to talk about the Mirth Connect message viewing. What you're seeing here is the message browser, so you can see messages that have processed on an individual channel in Mirth Connect. Right now you're seeing a DICOM message, so generally if it's HL7 you'll just have a raw transformed encoded message for each connector that you have. If you have an attachment, maybe you have an attachment in HL7 or maybe you're processing DICOM, then you can actually view those attachments in the message browsers as well. So sometimes in HL7 you might have base64 encoded PDF attached or RTF or just a JPEG. All those would be viewable in the message browser in their native form. When you install Mirth Connect, you also have the option of installing the Mirth Connect Server Manager. Mirth Connect Server Manager allows you to configure basic properties about Mirth Connect, what ports it uses, view logs, configure the amount of memory that you give the JVM that Mirth Connect is running. You can also start and stop the service if you installed the service. Service you could think of as like a Windows service. On Linux there's a service also. Same with on Mac, where you can start and stop the actual service that's running in the background that starts up when you start your server. And you can also configure what backend database Mirth Connect uses, and I'll touch on that a little bit more in the future. Mirth Connect also comes with a command line interface, and you can use the command line interface to run scripts or commands against the server, where maybe you want to import a new version of a few different channels and then deploy those. You could do that all with a single script connecting to a server. And often we have customers that use this where maybe they have 100 different appliances running Mirth Connect deployed. All of them are running the same subset of channels. Maybe they have a few of their own channels, but they each have these same 3 or 4 or 10 or 100 channels that they've configured, and every single server they have is running those. If they create a new version of those channels, they don't want to have to go into each administrator, import the new channel, and deploy it. Instead, they can write a simple script that uses the command line interface from Mirth Connect to connect to each of those servers, import those channels, and then deploy them. There's also a lot of other options you see here. You can basically do everything here that the Mirth Connect administrator can do, except edit your channels. If you want to edit your channels, you either do it through the Mirth Connect administrator or export it, and you could edit the actual file that exports. So in general, it's a basic description of Mirth Connect, and we try and make it easier here at Mirth Corporation with our optional training, certification, and support. We also offer consulting and professional services. We offer secure, reliable hosting. We have partner and reseller programs. and we sell ready-to-run Mirth appliances. Mirth appliances are basically a secure platform that's performance optimized for running Mirth Connect. And if you have multiple of them, you can set up failover clustering, where if the hardware fails or crashes on one, the other appliance will pick off where the other one left off. And we offer a virtual or VMs for this, as well as hosted options.